All-American half pound. This is 2 pure beef patties, lettuce, tomato.
Singles going steady.
This is Singles Going Steady, the podcast dedicated to exploring great singles with a particular eye to the punk, new wave, and DIY eras of the last century. I'm Adrienne Madoc.
And I'm Steve McGowan. We have a band, the Beef People. We released a single in 1986 on our own label, Zub Records. And we are record collectors and passionate especially about the expression of pop music perfection that is the single recording. Exploring the mystery of what makes for a great single is what propelled us to begin this podcast.
And we've got a good one today, don't we?
We sure do. This is episode Singles Going Steady 026.
Ooh, 026.
And our first disco single. It's kind of a long story, and we'll get into it. It is the American band Sparks, and a band that covers more than 25 studio records, but we're going to start with the record Number One Song in Heaven, and the single that was released in the UK, The Number One Song in Heaven. So Sparks are from LA. They're two brothers, basically. Ronald, who writes most of the stuff and plays the keyboards, and Russell, the operatic-sounding singer, and the so-called good-looking one. They started off right in the early 70s. They were kind of a weirdo pop group with the Mankey brothers in the band, Earl and Jim Mankey. Earl Mankey going on to play in Concrete Blonde much later on and put out some of his own solo stuff. They did that for a while. Then they moved to... they jettisoned the band and they moved to England. And they were kind of glam stars. That was their big period there. They did Propaganda and Indiscreet. They work with Tony
Those
Visconti.
are albums.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They weren't like writing propaganda for the English.
No, those are the names of the albums. And those are the kind of the classic rock and roll. They had a British band. They did that for a while. They came back to America right at the end of the 70s, having had some good success in Europe and Britain. And they signed with Columbia Records, and Columbia tried to square peg, round hole them, tried to make them more of a middle-of-the-road rock act. I think that Rupert Holmes actually produced one of their records, and they put out a couple of not-so-great-sounding records with session guys, and it wasn't going well for them, so they kind of gave that up. And they were enamored with this new sound they heard in the disco clubs, and it was coming from Germany and Giorgio Moroder. And the sound involved a lot of synthesized music. Obviously, it wasn't a rock and roll sound. It was a disco sound. And they decided to pursue this. Should we play a little bit of Donna Summer, maybe?
Yeah, so this song that really kicked it off and was greatly influential on folks out.
Everyone.
We're talking about disco, but influential on folks that had an interest in cutting edge music. Mm-hmm. Sat up and paid attention at this record. It was something new. It was all synthesis and
synthesized drums.
And it was something that they'd never heard before,
right? And
it was a game changer.
This is something you can do on your laptop now, but back then it was kind of complicated with analog synthesis and things veering in and out of tune and trying to lock everything in. So this is a very long 12-inch single. We're just going to play a little bit of it. Giorgio Moroder producing Donna Summer and I Feel Love on Casablanca Records. Here it is here, I Feel Love. So that was I Feel Love. Sparks, Ronald and Russell Mael, they really were interested in this sound, and they had some kind of connection with Giorgio. They knew somebody who knew him, and they ended up starting to work together, and this is how this album came about. The single is from 1979. It was not released in the U.S. It was released, the album was released in the U.S., but the single charted in the U.K. I think it was on Virgin Records. And it definitely has that disco Giorgio Moroder sound. It's got a little bit more of a playfulness to it.
Oh, yeah. It's got the weirdo Sparks.
Yeah, all the lyrics are always weird. Funny, silly, ridiculous. So we're going to listen to a little bit of this. This is the longest single we've reviewed on our podcast, our disco cast. And it's
right. We're going to be all disco from now on.
It's 7:24, and we won't play the whole thing, of course. But check out Sparks from 1979 doing the number one song in heaven.
So that's only part way into the new world of synthesized music. You've got actual drums playing
Yes.
the track there, not synthesized drums, and all sorts of Moog magic going on.
Mogi.
Mogi.
Yes. I love Russell's vocals. They are very operatic, very up in the high register, not your typical rock singer. But it does take a little getting used to, but he's got a great voice, and the song is definitely a dance floor special.
Yeah, dance floor special that is this I can't talk tonight. Self-referential song about the number one song in heaven.
Yes.
So it's just goofy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely goofy.
Yeah, one of the lines is it's lyrically weak, but the music's the thing.
Yeah. But that's Sparks. I mean,
Yeah.
Sparks is always skewering the thing
Everything.
from within the thing.
Yes, they are the meta band. This did pretty well in the UK. The album was a hit on both coasts, on both continents. I mean, UK and the US, and in Europe.
And well, right now I know that the incredibly popular in England, and Edgar Wright, the English film director, is currently following Sparks around. I saw on Twitter, because I follow both Sparks and Edgar Wright on Twitter, that they are joining up together in Japan as part of this big Sparks documentary because he's a huge fan.
Can't wait to see that.
Yeah, so that'll be great. And obviously, music is a big thing for Edgar Wright.
Right.
And what a great thing to have all those hit films and be able to take your cred to go off on a passion project like a film documentary about Sparks.
Right. And so Sparks went on. They didn't stick with this tack very long. There was a couple of records. There was one that wasn't released over here called Terminal Jive that was very synthesized and disco-y. And a couple other ones, Music You Can Dance To. And then they got an American band back again, and they started doing the quirky rock and roll thing. And some of you might remember they had kind of a hit with the song I Predict. That was on the radio, and they were doing their goofball stuff then. That was around the time that we got to see them. There's a good story associated with that. I took Adrian to Atlanta, and it was a surprise.
This was a super surprise.
Yeah, super secret.
You're never going to guess who you're going to see. It's like, oh, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be?
So we went to the Omni in Atlanta when it was still
the old Omni,
and so we had to hang around the mall foorover until it was time for the show. And Adrian finally found out that Rick Springfield was the headliner.
So this was like mid-'80s, Jesse's Girl era. Rick
so she's like, "What the hell are you doing taking me to a Rick Springfield show?"
Why are you a teeny bopper era Rick Springfield concert on me? And of course, it was all like moms with their kids,
right? And she started getting madder and madder and madder. And I was like, no, don't do it. Just wait. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And of course, Sparks were opening, and nobody cared about that except Adrian and I.
There were two of us that they had the standing O pretty much throughout the set.
And they came on and did their set, and it was great.
I've never seen a more confused audience.
I know. The kids were just like, what?
Why are you not Rick Springfield?
Yes.
Now, why are you not singing Jesse's Girl over and over?
Yes. So I had the pleasure of seeing them about 2 or 3 years ago. They were in Atlanta at the Variety, and just the two of them doing the two hands, one mouth tour, and it was amazing. I mean, they still play all the songs, and Ron got all the sounds he needed out of that huge keyboard, and Russell still got the voice. Sparks is just a very unique, very interesting band, and they're still plugging away. They've got the documentary. They just put out a new album called Hippopotamus, which I have not digested yet, but I'll let you know.
And there was the recent collaboration where they threw in with Franz Ferdinand.
That's right.
We had the supergroup, FFS.
Right. And that was a good record. It sounded kind of like an old Sparks record, to be honest. They also put out a record in '97 called Plagiarism, where they had the cojones to just rework all their old songs.
Yeah, and you know that this is the contract avoidance method, right?
Yes.
Because often you'll have a clause that doesn't permit you to record songs that you recorded for a label for a certain time period.
Right.
And if you've lost control of your masters through contractual bad planning, so that you don't own the master recordings of some of your classic songs, you re-record them.
Yes.
If you're not barred by contract from re-recording them. So having a new recorded version is sort of the answer to being able to get some financial benefit from your own best loved, best known, best sought after recordings.
And when they redid this song, number one song in heaven, they got Tony Visconti and the Bowie producer to do some string charts for them, and it's quite interesting. I think we're going to play just a minute or two of
get
it.
a taste of it.
Just so because you've probably had enough disco for one night. And so here's Sparks in their 1997 remake of their own song, number one song in heaven.
This is the number one song in heaven, written of course by the mightiest hand. All of the angels are shivering before the master. They always follow the master and his plan. This is the number one song in heaven. Why are you hearing it now? You ask. Maybe you're closer to hearing it without you. Maybe you're closer to hearing it can't be. This is the number one song in heaven, written of course by the mightiest hand. All of the angels are shivering before the master. They always follow the master and his plan. This is the number one song in heaven. Why are you hearing it now? You ask. Maybe you're closer to hearing it without you. Maybe you're closer to hearing it can't be.
So there they are doing their own song and sounding a little bit more modern. The guys never quit. We were talking about who could imagine covering this. I was thinking maybe the Human League. Bring it down a couple of tones.
A lower register
yes,
for
have
sure.
the lower register vocal. They definitely have the synthesizers to do it. Did you have a recommendation?
I guess my recommendation is some Sparks, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And there's something for everyone.
Yes, if you want glam rock, if you want weirdo, almost indie rock, if you want slick rock, if you want disco, if you want just funny, dumb stuff.
Angst in My Pants is
Yes.
one of the great albums.
Yes, very, very good. It's the one with the picture of the brothers getting married, and one of them's wearing a wedding dress, and hilarity ensues, as they say. And I would recommend the album Kimono My House from 1974, which was part of their glam period. It's got This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us on it. That's great. And I would recommend Number One Song in Heaven if you're inclined to listen to a little synthesized disco. It's as good as it gets, as good as Donna Summer.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our podcast for this week. This has been Singles Going Steady 026, talking about Sparks and the number one song in heaven. And we will talk with you soon.
Something to look forward to.
All right, bye. To learn more about the artists and recordings we just talked about, visit our website at zubrecords.com and click on the Singles Going Steady icon.
You'll also find links to the persons, places, and things we recommend, and much more.
You can find episodes of Singles Going Steady on our website or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Singles Going Steady is brought to you by the power and majesty of Zub Records. Zub Records. Smart sounds for sharp people.